Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Booked, a place to explore the realms of creativity. Today's guest is Hûw Steer. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. We've just had a fantastic chat prior to actually recording this about the various miscellaneous objects around us.
So many
It's
things.
been a lovely getting to know you situation.
It's been great, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and thank you for taking a chance on a stranger from the internet, because this is all escalated out of just a couple of posts on Twitter. So I'm really glad that you made it today.
What is the internet for but finding random strangers? That's the whole point.
Exactly. That's how I found my husband. It was by accident.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll tell you about that later. So, I wanted to first talk about The Singer, which is your novella that I read recently. Have you got? Oh, look at that! You've got an example for those who can see the
I
video.
do. I have the
Here is an
lovely
example.
hardback, which
You have
can
the
actually do.
hardback.
I do, yeah. It's the only
So
one I bothered to
sweet.
do on hardback, and the one that least needed to be a hardback because it's so small. But there you are.
I have to say, and I'm sure I said this to you before, this book is like a warm hug with some hot cider and a lovely smelly candle under a blanket. It's just so nice. It's so beautifully written and immersive and gentle and cozy, and it's just so well composed. So firstly, thank you for writing it.
Thank you for reading it. That's yeah.
It was a pleasure,
Nice
honestly.
thing,
Yeah, I've read some books in my time, and that's one of the very good ones I've read.
yeah. I've read some books, and that was one of them.
It was one of those. It was one of the ones I read. So what? Where did this come from? Because it seems to be quite gentle comparatively to the different sort of styles of story that you write.
Um, yeah, so this one was, I mean, in terms of origin and what it's about, I grew up in Herefordshire, I grew up in the countryside, and obviously it's not really like that because this is 2024. But when you look at home through sort of rose-tinted glasses, and when you're sitting, say, in the middle of London on a rainy day and it's grey and horrible and you've got work in the morning, you think about things with a lot more nostalgia than you normally would, and that is kind of how it feels to think about the fields and the trees and how lovely and calm and peaceful it is out there. And so that's kind of the what it turned into. It didn't necessarily intentionally start that way because it's one of the what I'd like to call my sort of walking stories that I write and mostly do not publish because they don't really go anywhere, where I don't have a plot in mind, I don't have a big story, and I just sort of write about a guy doing a thing, usually walking somewhere over a long period of time, and I really get into the environmental description and just take it very slowly, just to kind of not write for the sake of writing, but just to keep my eye in when I'm between plots, as it were. But this one did evolve into having a nice story of its own, and a very relaxed one, a very gentle one. And I think when I wrote it, it was kind of what I needed to write and what I needed to be reading. I can't remember when I was actually writing it. I might have to actually check the file and see when I actually started it because I think it must have been like 2022, which may have been actually the period when I was at the end of coming to the end of the job I was working, which I was really stressed at and thinking about changing over to a different job. And that may have been around that time of actually my life was quite stressful and I needed to be reading something gentle and I need to be writing something gentle. And so it probably helped, I think, to be doing that story. And it certainly helped to think about it and revise it afterwards because it is, yeah, like you said, it's gentle. Not that much happens that is bad. And it's quite nice, really. And it's nice to have that sometimes.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is one of the revealing something quite weird about myself. This is one of the books that I've read where where you're like laying down and you're reading it, and then my feet were like rubbing together like a cricket because I was like, "This is so nice." It was one of those. That's how nice it is. It's fantastic. So you said that you think that it's probably something that you were writing during a stressful period, where you could immerse yourself, I guess, in somewhere that was less stressful. So is that one of your sort of motivations for writing, is escapism, or do you have other things that drive you to do it?
Oh, it's definitely escapism, like 100%. That's why I read, that's why I write, that's why I do 90% of the things I do. Um, to be honest, I'm always
Mm.
like I'm a whenever I go somewhere out of the house, I've got headphones in with a podcast or a book or something. When I'm sitting
Mhm.
down, I'm reading something. There's always some stuff going on, um, some sort of story that I can be listening to and immersing
Mhm.
myself in, whether it's in my head or I'm actually listening to it. And yeah, I think the singer is probably the most overt in hindsight bit of escapism for me when it
Mhm.
feels that it's getting into that relaxed frame of mind and that relaxed story.
Mhm.
I don't often get nostalgic for the moon, for instance, but I have also written about that. But then sometimes, yeah. Um, but but then a lot of my I can think of it in other words, yeah. And the nostalgia helps a lot. The escapism helps a lot, but it's
Mhm.
mainly it's writing about things that I like, and really hoping that some other people might actually enjoy it. Because mostly I realize over time I am writing for me.
Mhm.
For the most part, I am writing stories that I like that I would like to read. Like if I walked
Mhm.
into a shop and found one of my books, I would go, "Wow, that's cool. That's exactly what I want." Because that's who I'm writing for. Really, I'm writing for
Mhm.
me and different aged iterations of me
Mhm.
really. Like I wrote one of my short stories is about nuclear steam trains on Mars, and I wrote that because I really like trains, and that's it. That's the reason I wrote that story. When I was 10, and
Mhm.
someone explained to me how a nuclear reactor worked, I thought, "Ooh, that's like a steam train," and then that thought sort of percolated in my head for 15 years, and then I thought, "Okay, I can make this work."
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and I wrote it, and that's sort of what it was for. Yeah, I write
Oh,
for me. I write what I want to read. Be the change you want to see, be the books you want to read in the world, I think is basically that. Yeah.
that's fantastic advice. Because if the chances are that there's going to be another you somewhere in some capacity, isn't there?
We hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I know that you enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons and video. I think you play video games that have
Oh, yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
expansive worlds. So how does that play into your storytelling?
Well, I mean, in terms of expansive worlds, I literally just started Mass Effect again because a friend of mine had been playing it and been telling me about it for ages. I'm like, oh, I should start. I should. I'll go on then. I will start another playthrough of the entire trilogy. Yeah, I love story-driven games and that kind
Mhm.
of thing in my video gaming. Like some of my favorite ones, like things like Deus Ex, the modern Deus Ex Human Revolution. Absolutely adore that. I love that kind of getting to be in the story and run around shaping the story is lovely. I haven't played Baldur's Gate yet, need to do that. But that's the D&D aspect of it really is
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, I've only played at length in one campaign, really, which is the
Mhm.
campaign I'm doing now, which is a lovely campaign because it's with my wife and
Oh.
friends of ours. There are 8 of us in the group in total, um,
Mhm.
formed of 3 couples and 2 other people, who have all 3 couples are either engaged or married since we've
It
started playing the
works.
game. Yep,
The
yep,
system works.
it's great. Yeah, I think I think yeah, all 3. We went. I proposed to my now wife, and then we went
Mhm.
to play D&D that evening, and then spent
Oh.
both of us said then separately, having told our friends, had a lovely time, spent the entire evening session flirting separately with the DM in character, while his fiance watched and laughed, and that is the glory of this game, among other things. You can do things like that. Um, yeah, I love being in character is also fantastic, and it does help
Mhm.
storytelling to a huge degree. The character I play is is very me. It's not very out there. He is a small man who does silly things and hits people with a sword and has a big moustache. The main differences are he can hit people with a sword and his moustache is better than mine. Otherwise, he's quite similar to me, really, and which means it's very organic. Like when I'm
Mhm.
reacting to stuff in character, I'm mostly reacting as I am. Um,
Mhm.
the only time it then gets awkward when you get stressed by situations like, oh god, now I'm feeling real feelings. No, no, it's not. I have to kind of separate myself at sometimes, but it
Mhm.
does make some things a lot easier to do. And yeah, I enjoy that kind of immersive storytelling. I love that. I've done some sketch stuff, I've done some improv stuff back in the day as well,
Mhm.
and being able to be a character and have the story develop around you as you do it is very, very fun. And
Mhm.
bouncing with other people is very, very fun. And my DM and I are very good friends. And he is a very receptive DM to when we have a session where dramatic stuff happens, and I will go home and I will write 2,000 words of in character story, like just like in that sort of 5 minutes when like what did I do? It was like when we're in prison and everyone's
Mhm.
working around. Okay, here's the inner thought process of exactly what he was doing when he was in prison, which I didn't do because that would
Mhm.
take up way too much of everyone else's time. But I'll write it down and I'll get it out there, and it's a really nice way to feel like a character is developing around you
That's
by actually
cool.
playing it. It's great fun. I've written stories about him now as well because I thought, well, there's no point in just letting him sit there in the
Mm.
campaign. I may as well actually write properly.
Mhm.
Um, Turns out, not a lot of magazines want to take 10,000 words of swords and sorcery fantasy these days, but I'm trying. He might be coming to a page near you at some point.
Possibly. If there are any very, very niche magazines out there that are interested in his story, please do
Mm,
contact him.
please, please, please help me. It's sitting there.
Open to
I have.
publication now.
I will have to do it myself if no one else takes it, please.
You could start your own magazine where the entire contents is just different stages of the story. So basically,
Good.
like a, I don't know, like a serialized version, and then you could just get people to, I don't know, pay you money for adverts, and then it'll pay for the magazine.
Yeah,
You
you
do
never
that.
know. Yeah, could do that.
Start
I
your
mean,
own
I'll
thing.
write some other ones. I mean, if I get enough content, I'll just put out a book that is just the adventures of Snowfree, and that'll
That
be
would
the
make
whole
way
thing.
more
Yeah,
sense
let's do
than
that.
a magazine you have to send out every month.
Yeah, I need to. I did start writing up the campaign at some point, and I got. I think I'm about two-thirds of the way into the first session, and it's
Mhm.
over 10,000 words, and we're on session 50 now. And I'm like, you know what? I may not get through this ever in my lifetime.
That might be your gift to the world when you
Yeah,
turn whatever how old
I'm like
you'll turn when you're
95,
old.
but we'll
Yeah,
still be playing. That's the
and
trouble.
it'll
I'm
be
not. I'm never.
thick as fuck,
Yeah.
huge.
The problem is I'm never gonna catch up. That's the issue. Like this lot, I'm assuming that we're all going to be 90 in the retirement home, still playing the same campaign at some point.
May
Um,
well be.
yeah, and I'll still be writing, and I'll be where we are now
Hmm.
in 60 years. That's probably how long it'll take me.
But that's okay because you'll never get writer's block because it'll already be written. It's just there in front of you
It's
for you to
handy, yeah. It is
put
very
down.
handy. It's
Yeah,
hard balancing seven POV characters, but there you go. Other than that, it's
I
fine.
believe in you. You can do
Yeah,
it. It'll be
it's
fine.
not like I can barely do three at the moment in the thing I'm writing right now.
I can't even look after myself in real life, honestly. Um, I'm gonna. I've been writing a book for months now, and it's
Mm,
gone nowhere for a really long time because I've started doing this, which is fine because I'm doing what I love, and it's literally about me. It's not about me, but the main character is based on me because the it, anyway, it doesn't matter. But
mm.
I'm struggling with that, and I know what happens, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's
Because it
fine.
happened already.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know, the engines run out of juice or whatever,
Mm.
however cars work.
It's hard to do though, isn't it? Even when you're trying to
It is.
articulate something that's literally happened to you, it's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult to get that down on paper because you have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of remember, like, how did I feel? Oh God, now I'm talking about how I felt, and it feels really awkward sometimes. You're trying to express stuff and
Yeah.
get words on paper. It is a hard thing. Is this the taxi driver stuff in book form
Yes and no.
or
It's
similar?
that no,
Isn't it?
the series of my taxi driver stories are literally just actual real things that have
Mm.
happened. And then the book I'm working on was based on. This is about you, by the way. I'm going to do this very quickly.
Turn the
Um,
tables.
but it's yeah, the turntables.
Yes.
It's loosely based on an incident that happened to me one night when I was a cab driver and I didn't think I was going to make it home. So the book starts off with that incident happening, and then it kicks off this like series of events, and it basically is like a commentary on the advancement of technology and how difficult it is for people going through a mental health crisis to be believed. That's that, but it's also painful to write, and I find that when things are difficult to write emotionally, sometimes I'm put off by starting them because you're like, well, now I've got to feel the feelings again, and that's not
Mm.
comfortable. It'll get finished one day, and I know my grandma keeps hassling me to finish it. Shout out to my grandma. Please stop hassling me. I'm trying. Um, She's gonna be like the one person I mention her every episode. She's like the one person I know is gonna listen to this. She's great.
Excellent. Yeah. And shout out to
Um,
shout out to Safi's Tales of a Cab Driver series. It's very good.
oh,
You go read it.
thank you.
Go read it.
It's not
You
finished.
you
It's
there. Go read it now.
I didn't pay him to do that. I promise. I wasn't going to bring it up. Okay, so 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 you have these immersive sort of games that you play with your friends and loved ones, and you go home. You write stories about that particular character that you are sort of embodying at the time. Do you ever play that trick for yourself when you're actually writing something that's not to do with the campaign, for example? So do you think, okay, right, I'm this character now and this is the journey they're going on? Or are you like, okay, I'm going to put him here and this is what he's going to do?
I I that seems to imply a degree of planning what the story's gonna be about, and I'm really bad at that. That is an important thing
Same.
about my writing is what's plotting? What do you mean people think about the whole story first and then start writing it after doing a detailed like world building? No, bugger that. I just go. That's why it's now so hard to finish my trilogy because I just went for 2 volumes. Now I have to actually like wrap it up and make it satisfying while inventing all the things that I missed along the way that I really should have put in quite a long time ago in book 1 or 2. Um, yeah, I'm very bad at planning ahead in any capacity, really. It's like the what is it, the gardening or architect or whatever. I liken it to a jungle in that I have a vague idea of where I'm going, but absolutely no idea what I'm going to hit as I hack through words along the way. Um, but to cycle back to sort of the POV thing, yeah, I put myself in shoes a lot. I
Mm,
think it helps with some characters. It's very easy to do because some of them are quite similar to me in some
mm,
regards, or at least like you always. I mean, this may not be true of everyone, but when I was reading as a kid, like you always imagine yourself in the shoes of whoever's doing the
mm,
thing, right? That's half the escapism for me, or it always has been.
mm,
Um, and I don't always do it intentionally, but I do realize that I reflect my characters reflect aspects of me a lot, and that helps when you're writing about things you love. It's hard not to do that in some ways, like aforementioned Great Martian Railway's steam train story. It's someone who is piloting a kick-ass nuclear steam train across the surface of Mars and thinking, "Holy fuck, I love trains" most of the time, um, and that's kind of like that's what I'd be doing if I was there.
yeah.
In many ways, that's what it would be like, and yeah, it's starting with a core character and a core sort of how would I react to the situation, how, and then you tweak it. So how would this person react to the situation because they
Mm,
are, I don't know, competent at what they're doing, for instance, or more nervous, or more anxious, or braver, or however you want to frame it. Um,
mm,
Going from there and then changing it to suit, and then some stories is sort of idealized versions of myself as I want to be, like the where are we? Like the
do you have
Blackbird and the
another
Ghost, the
example?
Boiling Seas. The whole stack is here, and I just realised I've
Oh,
forgotten to get the actual version that isn't the proof copy from many years ago with the lovely "Don't
but that's
sell
very
this" on.
cool.
Yeah, I've got all most of them have got that on them. Um, but I didn't set out to write a character who was very similar to me until I got to the second book,
Mm,
um, Nightingale, so where Tal's sister shows up, and I needed to write witty sibling banter for a sister who is far cooler and more skilled than the protagonist of the original book. And so, of course, I based her on my sister. And then, because she is awesome, and among other things, she's an actor. She's got stage combat training. She's really good at blending in and things. And that's a lot of the
that's
stuff.
sick.
This character, she's a thief and a swordswoman and sort of does the femme fatale role a bit occasionally, things like that. And it's the kind of thing that it would work perfectly. And so then when I
That's
was writing
excellent.
the witty sibling banter when they're arguing with each other, I realized over time that I'm just writing down conversations that we've had. I'm basing this because I based her voice on my sister's. Tal's voice has then become mine because
Mm,
he's arguing back with her.
mm,
Uh, and so he's ended up a lot more like me in sort of in verbiage at least and the way he
mm.
talks than he originally was intended to. But it's quite fun. It makes him very easy to write. It makes him very fun to write now. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, wittier version of me. It's great being able to write down your comebacks and then tweak them and then get it right, as opposed to actual conversation where you think of it 6 hours later. Um, Pro tip: write those down and then use them for your characters, and then they'll seem really cool.
That's a great tip, and also organic.
Of course, yeah.
Um, yeah, those moments after conversations where you think this is what I was going to say. Does your sister know that character is inspired by
Yes.
her?
Oh, she does. She does. I
Does
mean,
she love it?
hopefully, yes, she loves it. Hopefully, she has done actually a bit of it. She's gonna read the audiobook eventually when she has time. She's gonna narrate that. Um,
Oh, amazing!
Check out Howard Mortimer on her showreel, and there's actually a snippet of it on there that I need to listen to of the first book.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm just plugging stuff now. I'm just
Why
plugging
not?
things now, but yeah, why not?
We love creative stuff here. That's the point. So thank you, because you may
That's
have
true.
introduced somebody to something else that they're going to love. So that's great.
There we are.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of writers through doing this, and most people have got a reflection of their family or themselves in their books, and it is far easier to read than it is to make up this person that doesn't necessarily exist. And it also makes it, I think, relatable and more comfortable for people to read because they're like, "Oh, I've met that guy before," or it mirrors someone that they already know.
Yeah, it's easy to do. I've realized several times I've written characters who have really strange relationships with their parents, and I never have. My parents are lovely.
Oh,
We've always got on really well, and I realized like, oh no, I've done this whole thing where she's literally fighting her mother in a magical duel. It's like this is fine. My mum's lovely.
oh.
That's not from life at all. And it's yeah. Sometimes things surprise me with that. I don't, yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you can't just write about yourself because you're also going to be
No.
doing this thing where you're like, but what if things were different? So I was speaking to a writer the other day, and they basically said, okay, so I take this thing and I think, okay, what if it was completely different? And then that's how they write their story. So they take a regular interaction, and then they like, okay, so what if the roles were reversed, and that person was actually in power, and that person wasn't? And what if instead of on the street, it was on a mountain? Um, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's sci-fi. That's spec fic. Really, that is
mhm.
what that is. That is the I'm going to get really technical now and go back
Oh, go on.
to my undergrad and master's theses. Darko Suvin, principle of cognitive estrangement, which is the when you have the world, but this thing is different, and that's like the crux of whatever the sci-fi story is. Like
Hmm.
I don't know if Philip K. Dick like total is it total which is the Minority Report, but this is the world, but the police can see the future, and then you spiral off from there,
Hmm.
and that like it can be one little thing that is different, and then you have this weird mirror to our world is that then spirals into a completely different set of circumstances. Like Man
Hmm.
in the High Castle, What if the Nazis win the war, is a very simple. It's all what ifs, and then you
Hmm.
take the resulting world and and that's how you get fantasy and sci-fi and spec fic and
Hmm.
in general, which is a weird definition of stuff. I'm not going to get into the technical definitions of sci-fi now because that will take too long. But yeah, that's kind of the core of most stories. Like you have a
Hmm.
what if, even if it's a big like a huge, completely like secondary world fantasy. Somewhere in there, there is a what if that is
Hmm.
the core of it. Like, what if the sea was hot? There we go. That's what seas is. Um, that is the core aspect of it, really. And
Hmm.
and you that's the seed from which these stories germinate.
It's kind of hard for me to think about. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that. So, other writers that I've spoken to, they have, their preferred styles of writing. So they'll write short form, or they'll write, a big novel, or they'll do comics, or whatever it is that they do. And most people seem to have like a preference that they lean toward, and it always baffles me when people can be succinct enough to write a good story in short form, like flash fiction, for example, that has fantastical elements, such as like being based on sci-fi, or there's this like really crazy thing that you'd normally have to explain across chapters and chapters and chapters. Is there a Do you have like a preference or an area where you feel most comfortable when you're writing?
Depends on what the idea is, really.
Mm.
Like, I mean, really short is hard, right? I've tried a bit of flash fic.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get enough
Yeah.
stuff into that that few words. It's a good challenge to do if you are
Mm-hmm.
writing long form. It's nice to make. I like making myself do stuff that I'm not necessarily comfortable with sometimes, just to like flex the creative muscles. Even if it ends up being rubbish, it's nice to try this sort of thing. Um, I like good short story. I'm bad at writing short stories. A lot of my short stories are actually very long, which is why so many of them have been published because they're not very like The Singer was a short story and it's a whole book now. It's like and was it 70? It's like 17K. It's not very long at all. Only got
Mm-hmm.
17,000 words. Um, I've got some novellas knocking around. I've got longer things. In in some ways, kind of the novella length might be my accidental preferred length of book because what I tend to do with
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my stories, a lot of my books, is like I'll do like part one, part two, part three, and they each part will have its own like third act, climax, rise and fall sort of thing, and then he'll put them together. And you could probably split those up into separate volumes if you really wanted to. I often
Mm-hmm.
write that way, but then you string them together and you get a longer story out of that. Some of
Mm-hmm.
my short stories, I struggle to go under about 5,000 words most of the time. I think I have some slightly shorter ones, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my short stories are over 10,000 words long. Thank you, magazines like Analog, who have no hard word limit on what they'll publish. It then makes it really hard if they don't like that story, and then you have, now I have this story that nowhere else is going to want because it's twice as long as their maximum word limit. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, that's sort of, I don't know, you get about 20,000 words. That's enough to get, for me, to get a really good whole thing down. And
Mm-hmm.
if that is then like part one of three or four and there's more stuff going on, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like current book, Boarding Seas Book 3 is over 100K now, which is too long.
Wow.
Anyway, it's going to be longer than that, and it's still going to be too long. But it's the third book in the trilogy. I had to let myself be a bit long for this
Oh
one.
yeah,
The second
absolutely.
book was The second book was 99, but what I don't. It's going to be twice as long as the first book. I think the first book was only like 67,000 words or something like that.
Wow.
This is so long, and I don't like that. I'm like, oh God, have I written so much story? But that's got like part one is about 30K or so, and that is
Mm-hmm.
like there's a whole thing there. It's like you could that could be a mini trilogy lut because you intro the characters, you get the status quo in, they go and find their conflict, they have a
Mm-hmm.
nice bit in the end where they're all resolving different things, come back down to the conclusion. Part two starts, and then same again. We're building up again and down again.
Mm-hmm.
I like my mini climaxes, as it were. Um, I like that. So yeah, I guess that's kind of in a rambling way, that's preferred length, but it ultimately depends on the idea. Sometimes an idea you can get done in 3,000 words, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it takes me a lot longer. Most of the time, I should then go and cut out a lot of those words afterwards because they're not very good. But I hate editing, so I don't do that often enough either. I could probably end up with much shorter stories than I have, but I don't like cutting them down because it's hard. I think like, I've written that. It's fine. It was fine when I wrote it. Why isn't it fine now? Oh, it's completely redundant. I guess I'll cut that whole chapter. Fine. Yeah.
Do you edit your own work?
Yes. Badly. But I do. um, yeah, I have my small elite proofreading team, by which I mean my
Mm-hmm.
dad, my best man, and occasionally my wife, um, go through stuff and check for errors and that the plot actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My best man is the best one. Honestly, he's my best
Mm-hmm.
proofreader because he doesn't actually like reading fantasy very much.
Oh, okay. So you can
So
be
he
kind
is
of
the
impartial
perfect.
about it.
Yeah, he is
Yeah.
very good and objective. And if he says it's good, I know that it must be good because he doesn't necessarily like that kind of
Mm-hmm.
plot. So if he enjoyed reading it, I know I've kind of got it right in
Oh,
some
that's
way,
cool.
which is good. Yeah, and he's very good at being like, no, check this, check this. Also, you've missed out all these typos, and I will I will fix them eventually. He sent me a typo document for my second book about 2 years ago, and I haven't fixed those. So they're still in the manuscript that is available to buy. And one day I'll go back and get them, but it's not today.
Excellent.
Like I said, bad at doing my editing, but I do it. Yes, and
Oh,
that's
that's
what I've been
fine.
doing for the last year is redrafting this book and making it
Mm-hmm.
work. It takes forever. Yeah.
Do you ever forget what you've written and you think, oh, I don't remember doing that?
Yes,
Yeah.
always, constantly. I I've never, apart from during like the revising process, where I'll sort of go through, I'll scroll through the Word doc and be like, okay, this bit's fine, this bit's fine, this bit's fine, and read it quite swiftly. I have never opened up one of these books and sat down and read it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually fully reread one of my own books, like actually sit down. I'm going to do some reading today, like for
Mm-hmm.
fun, read my own stuff. Maybe I should. I don't know if people. It feels slightly arrogant to do that. I don't know why. To sit down and read my book. Yeah, I don't know, but it just feels. I have a weird mental block because like it feels very, um, very yeah, very arrogant to read my own work. But oh, what excellent writing this is! I love this scene. It's like. Also, I'm terrified I'm going to hate it as well, partially.
It's too late now. It's in print.
I
People
know
have
I've
read
written
it.
it. Yeah, I
People have
know
read it
people
now, and
have.
they can't unread it.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
Um.
But so I do. I go back through during the editing process, but then I forget. I
Mhm.
have to remind myself, especially now I'm on like trilogy. I have to be like, right, what happened back then? Why am I tracking back
Mm.
here? What was this place? And I've sort of avoided for the most part. It was quite for a lot of the first book went to places was fine. Second book spent a little bit of time in one of the places in the first book, but was mostly set completely elsewhere. Third
Mhm.
book has gone back to places from first book, but places that I alluded to I didn't actually go into, which is quite nice.
Mhm.
Um, Mostly it's continuity. You have to like check this sort of thing. Like I had the other day, I was trying to remember I need someone to change clothes, and I had to remember, wait a minute, those clothes are literally on the other side of the world to this character right now. How do I get them there? And it was quite easy to solve, but I
Mhm.
actually had to think about wardrobe logistics from book two because I literally had those clothes abandoned on the other side of a collapsing volcano from that character. And I was like, you can't change. You don't have those.
Do
One
you
of your friends is going to have to pack them, I guess. Sure.
So do you find these things that you kind of stumble upon them by accident when you're going through the editing phase, or do you have like a notebook or something where you're like, oh, I must remember to do this, or do you highlight stuff, or is it just you just
I have many
bumbling
Word
through?
docs and things on my phone.
Hmm.
Like there's the proper Word doc of like, right, here is the plan for the book. I need to remember to do
Hmm.
this, and I'll go back through the Word doc and do like comments and stuff. Be like, remember this bit, do this bit again, and then I'll forget about most of those, and I'll write them down on my phone again when I remember, and then I'll remember them like after I finish doing the edit. I'll scroll
Mm.
back through and I'll find the thing that I forgot to write down. Oh shit, okay, I guess I'll go and rework that entire passage because that was quite a good idea, wasn't it? Or I'll have done it and I'll be like, oh good, yeah, I clearly remember that note, and I definitely didn't remember making that note, but clearly it stuck in my head enough that I did do it anyway. Um, yeah, I mean that's the Control F is your friend
Hmm.
in terms of
That's my
finding.
favorite.
Yeah, I just find it and scroll through. And sometimes it's like, I need to find the word, what this word cat. Like, oh, you've used that 517 times. Okay, fuck me. I guess I am gonna hit the arrow every time until I find the one that I needed. Yeah.
So it seems like you definitely feel more comfortable with slightly longer forms of writing. Do you think that's because you like to give a lot of I don't know, depth to your scenery and to the sort of thoughts and feelings of the people that you're writing?
Yeah, like too much often. That's a lot
Mm.
what ends up being cut down the editing process is I will spend too long in a place, like
Mm.
enjoying writing about it, and there are whole thing. This book in particular, there are whole plot lines that have been cut. There are whole characters. Like a bunch
Mm.
of pirates showed up for a bit. It was great. I had to get rid of them. Um, Cut all that. Yeah, pirates are gone. They'll come back eventually.
Oh.
I'll do something else. But yeah, and I'll really what I will often do is I will be in the middle of an action scene and I will be enjoying it way too much, and like stuff will happen and it will sort of like we're at the peak of the action and we're staying here for about 3,000 words, and I'm like, mate, you don't need any of that. Just like it can go back to, but when I'm writing it, and also when I can't necessarily immediately think of how to end it, I will
Mhm.
keep going for too long, and then I have to go back and cut that down. Um, And part of it is one of the perils of the way I write, which is that
Mm.
I write at least 500 words every day, and it is the first thing I do before I go to work, so that it's
Oh.
definitely done. And so sometimes if you're having a slightly off morning, then stuff gets a bit too long because it's like I've written this in a really pithy way, but sometimes I'm a bit sleepy, so it's going to drag a bit. And then the next day I'll sort it out. I need to go back and do it
Mm.
again, basically. And so a lot of my redrafting ends up being rewriting because I see the idea that I had here, and I
Mm.
also see how it can be half the length because you only need these three bits, and the rest
Yeah.
of this is characters padding and running around unnecessarily.
Well, it sounds like, because you said that you largely write for yourself, it sounds like you're not in a negative way, but being very self-indulgent when you're writing, and you're like,
Yes.
well, I'm
Oh,
here and I'm going
yes.
to enjoy the ride, so there's no point in skipping over it because I want to write it. And I suppose even if you cut it out, you still got to live that experience, I guess,
Exactly. Yeah.
vicariously through your characters. So
Exactly. And it never goes anywhere. I've still got all of that. I don't delete.
mm-hmm.
I don't delete anything completely if I can help it. I
Mm-hmm.
have old versions. I have that, and like that, they're ideas that I can steal in the future and use again. And even if they're cut down, you can still use that. And the core ideas stay there. It's just usually the way that I go through them ends up being a bit too long, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
self-indulgent. Like, fundamentally, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I think that my words are good enough for other people to read. Few things are more self-indulgent than that. I think that the drivel that I type every morning before work is publishable.
It's not
Some
drivel, by the
people,
way.
some of it, the stuff that doesn't come out, yeah, there's some that is, but we'll see. Um, best bits, some of you have seen, but the worst bits will stay locked away for a long time, like the fan fiction. Wait, no, that's still out there. Shit. Um,
When did the fan fiction happen?
oh God, I
What
only
is
did
it
one
based
bit.
on?
I
You
did
brought it
one.
up.
I did one bit of fanfic. I still technically my DeviantArt account is still live. It's still
Oh,
up
you
there.
did it on DeviantArt.
I did. I had DeviantArt when I was a teenager.
Did you have
There's
Tumblr?
no Tumblr. I never actually had. That's one thing I escaped. But yeah, my wife uses Tumblr, and I get
She's
the
brave.
curated. I get the curated bests of Tumblr, um,
Yeah.
best of whimsical bits of Tumblr. But no, yeah, my DeviantArt is still live. It's got some mediocre photos, some shit poetry, and yeah, a piece of fan fiction for Rooster Teeth's Ruby, which I wrote the first bit of and never finished. But it's still up there.
Okay,
Maybe I'll
so I
steal it.
will be looking
Actually,
for that after this.
yeah. To be fair, I may well steal those characters back because they were OCs and they could be divorced from the world very easily and still work as
Yeah.
kind of God. They're so edgy. I've forgotten how edgy they are. Oh no.
Have
Oh
they got a
no.
lot of feelings?
Well, there's only one bit, but one of them's very edgelordy.
Yeah.
Like I think his name was Sable. That kind of gives you the
Oh, go
yeah
on.
yeah. That's where we were with that. Yeah,
Was that your outlet at the time?
probably one of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that. That's
I
okay.
mean, I've written edgier people. There's some stuff from like when I was in high school that I still have lying around that is like super edgelord, wonderful. Um, but that's the way.
Is that out there?
Yes.
Can I find
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. No. 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 No.
Oh,
That's it.
that's a shame.
I'm not sure. That's in an exercise book at the bottom of a box somewhere. I think hiding. Yeah.
If
And
you
there
ever
it's like
find
yes.
it
Yeah.
and you remember this, I'd love to read it.
It's very much the yes. Make his hair longer. Give him more black trench coats. Yes. He's a cool
I want
character
to
now.
read that so
Yeah.
much.
The this Shadow the Hedgehog game is cool because it's edgy unironically, whereas
Mm.
now it's funny because it goes all the way back around to being completely stupid. That sort of thing. It's like, wow, he's got a gun and says damn a lot. Amazing. And now I just laugh at the weirdly long-legged president and how incredibly stilted, stupid it all is. Uh, God, I'm looking forward to that film. This is a Sonic and Hedgehog podcast now.
Yes, it's now
Yeah,
transformed.
yeah. They gave him a gun in the trailer. I can't wait. They actually
I
gave him a
didn't
gun.
see it. Did
Ah,
they?
the new trailer's come out and they've actually given him a gun, which was
Oh,
like the whole. That's how it was like. What if we took Sonic the Hedgehog? Yes, and we gave the edgy one a gun. Okay, and that's the game. That's all. Basically, it was. It was like what if you could shoot people but were also fast?
Balls so
Yes.
fast.
And it's like, yes, the evil aliens will lead you to a destiny. It's like you can be evil and commit genocide, or be good and not do that.
Which are
And
the two
that's
choices we get at birth, isn't
yeah.
it, really?
Or be neutral and just run really fast to the end of the level.
That
That's
would be
the other
me.
thing you could do. Yeah.
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 And that was morality in 2005.
And apparently in 2024.
2024. He's back, baby. Keanu Reeves has got a gun and he's got a motorbike and he's a black and red hedgehog. And I
Is
cannot
he?
wait. Yeah,
He's
Keanu
really.
Reeves' Shadow. Yeah.
Fucking hell,
I
that's
can't believe
amazing.
it. Yeah.
I can.
It's
I can
gonna be
believe it.
so dumb. It's gonna be so good. I cannot wait.
I feel like it's going to be one of those where it's like really, really, really great for a very niche amount of people, really, really terrible for a lot of people. But then
Yep.
15 years from now, we're all going to look back on it and go, oh, that was a
Yep.
good movie. That really
Yep.
aged well. Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna be the best worst movie of all time, and I can't wait.
See, I feel like that about The Pick of Destiny, the Tenacious D movie. It's probably my
Yes.
most
Good
watched film of all time. And I'm not exaggerating. I've watched it with the director's commentary, with
Yeah.
Jack and Kyle's commentary. I loved it. Whereas, like, loads of people hated it. It's got terrible reviews. I still look back on that with fondness. So I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to have Pick of Destiny vibes.
Everyone's got some films like that, like some films
Yeah.
and games that are just objectively not very good, but they are close to your heart in so
Yeah.
many ways. He glances up at the Bionicle movie box set on the shelf out of frame. Things like that.
I like that your eyes had an absolute magnet and
Yeah.
you were like,
Yeah.
there they are.
I know, yeah, they are there. Yeah. I put like all my DVDs into one of those big like folder things to save shelf space, but some of them, like the special ones, got to stay. The Bionicle movies were the special ones. They're up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice. Treat them
Yeah.
with respect.
They're so bad objectively, but they're great.
Oh, I haven't seen them. Maybe I
Yeah.
should.
I mean, if you were not into a very specific subset of Lego in the early 2000s, then there is nothing for you here. But if you were, then by God, those films were mid.
Oh, great! I'm now officially sold too. I will definitely
Yep.
buy them. So speaking of games and various wonderfully nerdy things, I noticed that you like comic books.
I do.
It sounds like I'm a stalker.
comics.
I read your blog. I read Hugh's blog.
This is
before
all
we
public
did
knowledge.
this.
Yes, this
Yeah,
is
it's
all
public
out there.
knowledge.
Yeah.
I've not just like gone through
Yeah.
weird
She hacked
things.
into the blog and found all the posts that are set to family read only. Yeah. And,
Yeah. Those are the ones.
Yeah.
So, have you ever considered creating your own comic book, or have you already done one before? If you did, I want to know about it.
I have never done one because I am bad at drawing, and that is the main obstacle towards me in comics. If I could find someone who wanted to draw one, I'm sure I could get a decent plot out there. Yeah, I love comics. I love reading comics. As on the blog, I particularly love when comics do really stupid shit, and I get to write about it. Like when Aquaman was a swimming pool for 6 months in 2003, and he was a swimming pool. It's not like he was turned into water and he was a swimming pool. Children were pissing in him, and he was going insane. Yeah, it's like that's how the villains defeated him. They literally just walled him off and poured in chlorine. It's not literally, but it's not quite literally, but not literally as you think from the description of. It's very stupid. Obsidian Age JLA 2003. Thank you, Grant Morrison. But yeah, comics is a medium where you can do silly things in a very serious way, and I love that. Like you can have very stupid Superman and Batman stories or whatever, and you can have you can have really serious like murder mystery investigative stuff, and then if you're me, you notice that all of the bad guys are named after Manchester United players, which no American would have noticed when reading this Martian Manhunter run from 2005. But I noticed when the bad guys were shouting, "Where the hell are you, Alex Ferguson?" I was like, Jesus Christ. this assassin's name is Ryan Giggs. You can't do that.
Oh my
Every single bad guy, they were all Man U players. Um, and
god, that's amazing.
I dug into it, and like one of them was like an English footballer from the 1930s. I was like, this guy either just changed the name accidentally or was really, really into this niche like football teams in the north of England and was picking his character names from there exclusively. Um,
Phenomenal.
yes, no, I think that it's a wonderful method of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I I would like to do something like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think I would struggle to kind of getting it from. I mean, I've written script stuff, which is not necessarily the most dissimilar thing in that you're only writing
Mm-hmm.
dialogue and you're saying what's happening on stage around that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it would be a very difficult thing to actually do and do well. Because I mean, there is like the epic fantasy and sci-fi comics out there, things like Saga, which is wonderful, um, one of the best written graphic novel stories I've ever seen of all time. Fantastic. There's things like Saga. There are silly things. Besides, there are like the Transformers comics from 2005, which are big robots fighting each other. But then also, that's the thing that is nice about comics, right? You have this like, okay, here is a man who turns into a car.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how was it? He turns into a car. He's also a traumatized brain surgeon, and his tiny twink boyfriend turns into a memory stick, and they're having this horribly tragic love story where one of them dies and is replaced with an alternate universe version of themselves, and they have to fall in love again. And I have to remind myself every so often that this man turns into a car, and it's things like that. They're going through like it's like this guy's gone through horrible trauma. He's literally in psychotherapy for all the things that he's seen when he was the warden of a prison for people who turn into fighter jets, and he turns into a big tank. His psychiatrist turns into a wheelbarrow, and it's such a silly setting inherently, and
Mm-hmm.
people have managed to tell incredibly serious, heartwarming stories with it. And I think that's something that's really nice about comics in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and comics with big universes like that, is that when you're writing prose, sometimes it feels like you have to kind of, when you approach a weighty topic, sometimes it feels like you have to justify it. And when you have an inherently silly setting that can be silly and still are writing silly comics, and then you
Mm-hmm.
get a serious story in there, you can work that in a much more surprising and heartwarming way. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like when comedy shows get serious every so
Yeah.
often. The mark of really good comedy is when they stop being funny for a minute and it's still really
Mm-hmm.
compelling. Prime examples being End of Blackadder goes forth when they
Mm-hmm.
actually go over the top into the trenches. That one Mitchell and Webb sketch, the Sherlock Holmes one, where it's
Mm-hmm.
Sherlock Holmes with dementia and he just turns the camera and all the laughter stops and it's
Mm-hmm.
still absolutely gripping.
Yeah.
When funny stuff is funny enough that it can take itself seriously for a minute is peak writing, I think. And
Yeah.
being able to write light-hearted things and then become serious is something that is very difficult to do, and the kind of level of writing that I aspire to, really, to be able to get that right when I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing my silly stories about nuclear steam trains and whatever. To have even something even approaching a moment like that
Mm-hmm.
is kind of one of the things I'm writing for, really, I think.
Cool. So have you so if you think of how challenging it would be to create a comic book, because as you said that you don't feel that you would be able to do a lot of the drawing or
Yeah,
artwork.
I'd only be scripting, really. That would be the only thing I could do.
Is that
Yeah.
something that you would actively pursue, or is that just something where, like, if it just happened, then you'd be pleased about it?
I think it would be like I've got too much writing to do of
Mm-hmm.
prose, I think, to really dedicate some time to thinking about that sort of thing. But the more
Okay.
you talk about it, the more I now want to do it. So, um, come back in a year, and I'll be like, yeah, I've written 70 pages, and I found an artist and everything. Um, I'll have gone mad and written a comic somewhere. Who knows?
You
It's very
probably should.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone
Why
watching
not?
this who wants to draw a comic of some weird, silly stuff, hit me up because I've probably got some ideas floating around somewhere.
There you
Um,
go.
that would look good, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I think it's that snappy dialogue and writing the scripting and stuff. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a go. It's scripting. Just be scripting for a stationary thing rather than a moving thing, which
Hmm.
would be interesting. I should probably write that Doctor Who episode first, though. Yeah, got that
Oh,
knocking
do.
around in my head. Yeah, I genuinely had a dream and woke up thinking that would actually kind of make a decent episode of Doctor Who, and I have the idea written down somewhere. Rusty Davis, if you're watching this, please hit me up. I'm just talking
Oh,
directly to the camera to anyone who may be listening to this who works in Doctor Who. Hi, I really like that show. I'll stop doing that now.
okay. Who's your favorite Doctor?
Uh, oh God, there are sort of three answers, which is
Okay.
annoying. I know. Um, I adore the 12th Doctor. I adore Capaldi,
Mhm.
particularly in the later series with Bill. Like the grumpy old man worked so well.
Mhm.
I think because in many ways it built off Christopher Eccleston, Ninth
Mhm.
Doctor, who's also fantastic
It was
and
incredible. Yeah.
criminally short-lived as a Doctor, but
Really was, wasn't he? It was like gone in a flash. I was
only
so
one
sad.
series. But some of the, I mean, that's when I started watching the show when the revival came around, as did
Mhm.
most people of
Yeah, I
around my
did as
age.
well.
But adored that. I think 10th Doctor then sticks in your head as like this was my Doctor, which doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily, I think, have to be your favourite Doctor, but the one where I think of Doctor Who, it is David Tennant, because that was when I
Yeah.
was getting into the show, and you had three series of him
Mhm.
being delightful and excellent. And then when they did the reunion stuff, the anniversary stuff last year, and it was Tennant again, I was one of the people who was like, yes, 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 give me three more episodes of David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and I'm a happy man. And they were great.
Yeah.
So,
They
but
were such a good team together.
they're fantastic. No, I love
Mhm.
Doctor Who deeply. I love Ncuti. I love all Doctors really. I think no one has been the Doctor who has actually been bad at being the Doctor. I think it's
Yeah.
just sometimes the writing and the show running might let a Doctor down, but
Mhm.
everyone has always been good at what they're doing.
Mhm.
I do need to watch more classic Doctor Who because the second Doctor is an absolute delight. He is an agent of merry chaos, and
Mhm.
he's great. It's fantastic. Again, the
I
grumpy old man aesthetic, I think, is what works best with the Doctor. It's Capaldi and Eccleston do that so well.
yeah. Yeah. I was when they announced Peter Capaldi, I was like, that is probably going to be one of the best things I've ever seen because I loved him in Thick of It and
Yes.
oh my god, what was the movie version of it?
In the Loop.
In the Loop. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
he's fantastic. I
Have
bet
you
he's
seen?
so nice in real life. I bet he's
Have you
lovely.
seen that trailer that someone cut together when they'd announced it, but they had no footage yet? And it is just a Doctor Who trailer for the 12th Doctor, but it's only Malcolm Tucker audio.
No.
It's brilliant.
Okay, I'll have to look for that.
Hordes of fucking robots. It's great. It's
That's
so
great.
unbelievably good. Yeah. Yeah. He brought such gravitas to it, and I think that's like the
Mhm.
grumpy old man in the box, harking
Mhm.
back to Hartnell and the Order. There was such feeling to it, and I
Mhm.
think seems to have been like the biggest fan of Doctor Who to ever get to play the Doctor,
Mhm.
and that's great. He really
Yeah.
made it work in such a good way.
I think the fact that it's designed in a way that literally anyone that loves the character could play it and do it well because
Yeah,
of the structure of like it could be anyone, it could be a woman, they could have any other any heritage,
exactly.
they
Yeah.
could.
And you get such a range of portrayals. Like I love Jodie tinkering with things and being a
Mhm.
weird a weird awkward inventor. Like that's great. After Old Man and like several people who were kind of awkward but in a suave way. Like Matt Smith is
Mhm.
awkward, but also he's Matt Smith and he like is very smooth where he needs to be.
Yeah.
David Tennant was obviously being full David Tennant in the best
Mhm.
way, but Jodie being genuinely like a bit awkward and just like wanting to sort of play with tinker with stuff in the back of the TARDIS was like it's great. It's really good characterization and you can have it so
Mhm.
differently. And then Shooty's well so hot. He is really hot. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Running around in his awesome costumes, being very smooth and friendly and open
Mhm.
after after people like Capaldi, who is a grumpy
Mhm.
old bastard. Um, and then all of them still managing to have those sort of 1,000-year stare moments and let the character shine through. It's so good,
Mhm.
so good.
Yeah.
I love Doctor Who. It's great.
Long may it continue. I hope it just carries on forever.
Forever, yes, absolutely.
If EastEnders can carry on this bloody long, I think Doctor
Yeah,
Who can.
yeah. Give us a Paul
Yeah.
McGann series, you cowards. Stephen Moffat, if you're watching this, do it. Write for Paul McGann.
Imagine.
Because he wants to do it. He's super up for it. He does so much audio stuff, and he's
Fingers
good.
crossed.
He is really good. The audio's great.
Well, there you
Fantastic.
go.
Even the
Sale.
movie is
Sold.
not that bad.
Mm.
It's very silly, but it's Doctor Who, so
This has been so much fun. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for coming on the pod today. And oh god, I make myself cringe calling it a pod.
the
It's a
pod.
pod. This recording of an episode of this show that we are doing together.
This this radio play that we have been interacting with. This long form audio interview.
Well, I've had a blast. And
It's been great.
Thank you so much for. Oh, I just moved my camera.
Ooh.
I'm so sorry. I was
The
trying
Forbidden
to adjust
Zone.
I forgot it was the Forbidden Zone. I forgot that the camera is attached to the whole computer, and I moved the computer. I'm going to start that again. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, leave it all in. Leave it all in.
This is staying in. I'm a human being. I can't help it. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Safi. It's been lovely to ramble about a load of stuff that may or may not make this edit, but it's been really fun to chat to you. Some of it was about books, some of it was not.
And that's
If you're only seeing things that are about books, dear watcher, then there's more.
There's more bonus material.
Release the extended cut.
I'm gonna leave most of it in because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, so I wish you luck on your next endeavour, and I hope that book 3 editing and finishing happens easily for you.
Thank you.
But
yeah, that's the end of the year. Hopefully, we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Hopefully by the time you're watching this, I've finished the edit and I am well on the way to actually getting it out. Because it would be nice to not have to release a book at Christmas every year, because it's really stressful to do it at the end of the year. So yeah, by the time you've done this, hopefully it'll be done. We'll see.
Hopefully. So as we're listening to this, it will be February. So fingers crossed that will be available for you to start doing stuff with it.
Hopefully.
That's how I write. It's really janky.
If you too would like to do stuff and things with things that I have written, hopefully more of them will exist in February of 2025.
One can only hope.
Hopefully, this stack of things will be slightly taller than it was before.
And for those who are just listening to the audio, he was lifting up a stack of books. That was what was happening, and that's why he made that noise.
Yes. It's heavy. That was the sound of heavy.
Big stack of books.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, if anyone is interested in finding you on social media or trying to find your books, where can they access that?
My website is, if you type in, the wonderful thing about my name is that I appear to be the only human being who's ever existed who has my name. If you search Hûw Steer, you will find me. If you search at Hewage, which is Huwage, that should be me on, again, literally anything. It is the nickname that my year 6 teacher gave me. And so you will find me on, I don't know, like Hearthstone or Steam or anything. It's always me. It's always going to be me. Message me in weird places. I do not care. That's all fine. But yes, I'm on the internet.
That's nice.
Please read my stuff.
Oh, that's good. And I'll also put the links in the description of this episode as well. And by the time this comes out, you'll also have your author feature live on indiosyncrasy.com. And I'll
Yes,
put
of
a link
course.
to that in the description as well. But yeah, thank you again, and see you later.
Perfect. Thank you very much. See you later.